Hi everybody, thank you so much for your patience as I took a little break. My name is Dan Pardo, and this is Pardo's Turn, my weekly Wednesday web series where I analyze a classic show tune from a music director's point of view, and with the help of a special guest, perhaps shed some light on what makes the gems of our musical theater canon so great. Today, I'm so happy to introduce the fantastic Devin Ilaw, best known for his Broadway and regional turns in Miss Saigon and Les Mis. He also played Lun Ta in The King and I at the Marriott Theatre north of Chicago, and sang in 3 iterations of Bernstein's Mass. He was in Wearing Black at Nymph and The Passing at NAMT, 2 Off-Broadway New Works theater festivals. He's also one of the friendliest guys I know, and today we're going to sing Sarah from Frank Wildhorn's The Civil War. Like Andrew Lloyd Webber, whom we discussed in our last episode, Wildhorn is a real singer's-composer whose scores are best known for their soaring ballads, strong, hummable melodies, and pop sensibility. This is in spite of the often historical settings of his pieces, 19th century London in the case of Jekyll and Hyde, 18th century France for The Scarlet Pimpernel, the Great Depression for Bonnie and Clyde, and obviously 1860s America for the Civil War. The main A section for Sarah is an easy folk waltz, utilizing her name as the hook, skipping down the scale outlining a major 9 chord. Sarah, my Sarah. The second phrase employs a similar melodic gesture, now over the minor 2, but with the warm chord extensions, it somehow puts her at ease, despite the sad lyric, and leave you to move on alone. The antecedent and consequent phrases progress naturally with an altered final note in the second half, leading us into the next section, rooted in the minor 6 and breaking free from that waltz into a more deliberate 4/4 meter. But come what may, I'll always be with you, watching from above. And by soaring up to that high A flat, the singer is, quite literally, watching from above. The waltz returns for the conclusion of the melody, Sarah, oh Sarah, my love. The bridge remains in 3, but unlike the calming, descending melody of the verses, this section is more restless, marked by ascending leaps. If fate is kind, I'll soon be on your side. The third such leap overshoots, in effect, by a note setting up a key change for the final verse. It creates an interesting melody and a more elegant modulation. The last verse starts with a bit of a disconnect, actually. We're in the midst of this sweeping crescendo and modulation, and yet Jack Murphy's lyric says, I'll whisper your name. Not really, but it definitely burns like a fire so true. The climactic 4/4 section returns, but a step higher now, skyrocketing all the way to a high B flat. The final phrase unwinds and unravels as you'd expect, ending in a sensitive, introspective moment that, as you'll hear, Devin makes even a little bit more special.
Hey Devin, how are you?
I'm good, how are you, Dad?
Thank you so much. It's been so long. We've been playing email and phone. Well, not email, because you were the
worst emailer.
The worst emailer, but thanks for coming on. You've been Tui in Miss Saigon on Broadway. You started out with Les Mis.
These happy, non-drama musicals.
Mm-hmm. Is that kind of where your sensibilities live, or do they just find a high tenor and,
I always think about stuff like that, and the reality is I grew up doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I taught myself to sing, and idolizing those songs and those actors.
Mm-hmm. And even when we were kind of establishing the short list of things that you might sing today, and we landed on Sarah from The Civil War, you said that you, quote, love a sad ballad.
Oh, I love a sad ballad.
Talk about that. What draws you to that body of music?
I make fun of it all the time, so, but I'm, Filipino.
Yes.
My last name, Ilaw, means light.
Oh, that's really
So,
nice.
anyway, Filipinos love a sad ballad, and we love a karaoke track.
Oh, yeah.
The classic thing is to, pick up a microphone and be like, oh, vibrato, slow, and everything.
Mm-hmm. One of the neat things that you mentioned about Frank Wildhorn's music is that at the heart of it are these great pop tunes. Really nice melodies.
I was at the gym yesterday, actually, and all of a sudden, on the loudspeaker comes on "Where Do Broken Hearts Go," and Whitney starts singing, and I paused and I went, "Frank Wildhorn wrote this song."
Well, the proof's in the pudding.
And then I stopped and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm totally in the mood to listen to Jacqueline Hyde." Yes, he wrote that song, and then all these other awesome, literally pop standards for musical theater.
And I think that's a tradition that he's carried on from some of the Broadway greats.
Broadway music was pop music.
Right.
It just has evolved over time.
Yeah.
But then you stop and you go, but then we have Waitress, which actually is brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you have Hamilton, which is Hamilton.
Yes.
So we still have music that people truly listen to on the radio, like
Mhm.
right now on Broadway still.
Yeah.
So you've got this really like diverse set of, you know, the idea of what pop is also on stage.
Mhm.
And that's really fascinating.
Speaking of being diverse on stage, you've already established that you're a proud Filipino American. How has being a Filipino American affected your career and kind of created pathways to be a performer?
I think more than anything, it's given me a sense of community
Mm-hmm.
and support that I'm very, very, very lucky to always have now, all this time later. I mean, I wouldn't have met your wife if it wasn't
Mhm.
for this community. I wouldn't have the family that I have. Oh wait, pause. One more thing. One thing that I love about being a Filipino American and Asian American in the Broadway community, we love to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So every concert, every reading, every show is like, where are we going to eat afterwards?
I was so disappointed. You know, in the playbill they have like that, you know, profile on the different Broadway performers, and
And their favorite places to go. I
Yeah.
always wanted to be asked.
well, you know, and the kicker to that is apparently they're like sponsored and told, like, well, you have to choose this restaurant. But
Shady.
it is shady. But if you had your profile, what are some of your favorite places?
Oh my God, I mean, first, number one, I love Jeepney.
Mm-hmm.
in the
This
East
is
Village.
a Filipino place.
Filipino Gastropub. I love the new Wonjo in Koreatown. I love Korean food too.
We'll link all these below. Really important.
And of course, we have to mention, oh goodness, Hopkey in Chinatown. We have to, because after every
Yes.
NAP event, we
Mhm.
always go there, and
That's
the food is
Spyworks,
awesome.
family restaurant.
And I mean, like, it's legendary. You go down to the basement and you have to get the walnut shrimp and mayonnaise. And
It's so good.
It sounds weird, but it's like one of my favorite things to ever eat.
So good. We're doing the song Sarah from the Civil War. Why was Sarah in particular a song that you've kind of come back to many times throughout your singing career?
I mean, to be really frank and honest,
Frank?
Wildhorn, you gotta be a freaking good singer to do
Mhm.
his stuff. And you need a big voice.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's written, the modulations, the area of the voice that it lies in, you need super control of your voice,
Mhm.
and just also, but also coupled with a sense of abandon to bring his stuff to life. And
Mhm.
let's face it, the people who have sung his stuff, you know, Linda Eder, one of his muses, Whitney Houston, Christiane Knoll, Anthony Warlow, Colm Wilkinson.
Mhm.
These are voices where you hear the first few notes of them singing, you go, I know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear them sing a song, and you're like, well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Now about Sarah, I mean, I first heard this song at school. Tenors always going up and doing Sarah and being like, I always want to sing that song. But I never did in college. And then all of a sudden it became my audition song for the first 3-4 years out of college.
Oh wow. Like just your go-to.
Yes, and it was one of those that I was like, oh, I know I can play with it vocally. I know I can sing it in the morning. Very important thing as an actor. And then I know it shows off a lot of the stuff that I want to show, but also like to show, and that's really important.
Yeah.
Plus, I love the song.
And you said you've actually sung it for Frank himself.
Yes, he wrote a Korean musical called Tears from Heaven. We did 2 readings of it here in New York City. This had to have been like 11 years ago.
Okay.
I remember hearing that Frank Wildhorn wrote an Asian musical and being like, oh my God, I have to be in that. And I got an audition, and I was thinking to myself, well, there's all this other stuff, and you never know. We always question as artists, like, do I sing a song by that composer? Do I sing a song from one of his shows? And at the end of the day, I was like, listen, I fucking love him, and I've always wanted to sing his stuff for him, so this is my opportunity.
Yeah.
So I sang Sarah for him. And, you know, if you've ever worked with Frank or know him, it's so funny because you just see this guy with a baseball hat at the table, like at the side of the table, just like looking down the whole time. And I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those auditions. And I remember I had like a couple notes or something that he was like, kind of looked up and then pulled his hat back down. And then
that was the tell.
And then I held a straight tone note to vibrato, and he like looked up and just kind of like did his hand like this. And when the vibrato came in, he went,
Seems like subconsciously coaching you from
yes, and I was like, oh my God, I'm doing what he wants. And it was so funny because I finished it and I felt really good about what I did. And I was like, I've always wanted to sing for you. And he just kind of looks up and he goes, That's just a great song. I wonder who wrote it. And like everyone in the room laughs because they all know. And I was just like, ah, you did!
Mm-hmm. Want to sing it?
Yes, let's do it. Oh, Sarah, my Sarah, I fear I must go and leave you to move on alone. A hard wind is rising and fixing to blow and scatter the days we have known. But come what may, I'll always stay, watching from afar. Oh, Sarah, my Sarah, I love. If fate is kind, I'll soon be by your side. But always know you can find me deep inside. Oh, Sarah, my Sarah, I'll whisper your name. My thoughts all will run home to you. My heart is the candle, and your heart the flame that burns with a fire so true. And know that we will surely meet again. Until then, I swear I love you, my Sarah, forever and always, my heart will be there.
So I'm trying to remember. I think we first met through a NAP event, but we've since crossed paths with many kind of readings and benefits. You are so generous with your time. Talk to me about what role kind of community building and giving back has been for you as a performer.
I think the older I get, the more I realize that I want what I do to like really matter in the world. What can I do to actually use my art to change the world? And I've found myself suddenly in a lot of these communities and projects and organizations that are actually doing that and asking me to perform in order to help their project. And that's when I'm like, oh my God, yes. One of my favorite things that we just did was Visible Ink, which is a program at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where patients enter and express themselves through creative writing, and then through working with mentors and other writers, directors, artists, they turn these pieces into theater pieces. And then like I'm in the ensemble of actors that got to bring those pieces to life.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's really
These
special.
are people talking about their real experiences and sharing parts of themselves as part of their rehab and as part of their therapy, and that's amazing. I'm also involved in Unstoppable, which is these kids in the Bronx that all go to the Haven Academy. And it's these kids who are literally off the streets in an arts program, and it keeps them off the streets and creating stuff at the same time. And because of that, here we are, these kids are creating and writing their own off-Broadway show.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
So thanks again for coming on, Devin. This was a real pleasure, real treat, long awaited. If you liked this episode as much as I did, please give us a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, share, like. How can they find your work, Devin?
You can find me on the Instagram. I'm at Hello There, I'm Dev. And come along with me on the journey. I'm always up to some crazy adventure and quite possibly lip syncing in a wig if you watch my stories, so that's always a draw.
All right, see you next week.
Bye! I know that we will surely meet.